Our main character wakes up in a narrow alley with no memory of how he got there. Completely confused, he starts wandering through the nearby streets, hoping something will make sense. When he reaches a crowded main road, one question keeps echoing in his head: "Where am I?" People stare at him as he walks past. Some whisper, wondering why someone who looks like a noble would be in such a place. Others suspect he might be hiding his true identity. Soon, the protagonist realizes something strange. He understands the language everyone is speaking. Even so, many of their comments confuse him. At one point, he casually approaches a fruit stall. The vendor and a woman buying fruit freeze in panic, but the albino simply greets them politely and walks away like nothing happened. The country also feels massive, yet he has no idea where it is. After walking for a long time, eventually, he spots a group wearing armor and carrying swords, talking about a labyrinth. He assumes they're mercenaries, unaware that the country may be on the brink of war. Needing information, he decides to sell one of his belongings. That's when he finds an appraisal shop and steps inside. The shopkeeper welcomes him, but immediately becomes tense after noticing his noble-looking appearance. Calm as ever, the albino greets him and asks if the shop is open. The seller says yes, though he secretly wonders why a noble has entered his humble store. Without hesitation, the albino says he wants to sell something. The shopkeeper explains he needs to examine the item first. The protagonist places his sword on the table and casually looks around. His eyes stop on a map hanging on the wall, one he doesn't recognize at all. The shopkeeper comments on how impressive the sword is, noting that its design is unlike anything he's ever seen. Realizing he spoke too freely, he quickly apologizes. The protagonist reassures him, saying he's not the type to get angry over a compliment. When asked about the price, the seller confidently offers 200 gold coins. The albino agrees, and moments later, a pile of coins appears on the table. He thanks the shopkeeper, then asks if there's a proper way to store so much money. The seller shows him several wallet options. While choosing, the albino also asks to buy the map from the wall. The shopkeeper agrees but asks which wallet he wants. The protagonist leaves the choice to him, which only makes the man more nervous. After selecting a wallet, the seller explains how it works. The albino listens with fascination. The shopkeeper adds that special wallets for people who can use magic are rarer and more expensive. Hearing the word magic, the albino wonders whether this is the same as the witchcraft he knows or something entirely different. Once outside, he continues walking through the city. The place feels strangely familiar, like his homeland, yet that only makes him feel more out of place. Realizing he needs answers, he decides to find someone willing to speak honestly, someone with morals, courage, and the ability to read between the lines. Just as he's deep in thought, a man suddenly stops him and warns him not to enter a certain alley. The protagonist thanks the man, and as he walks away, casually tosses him a coin. The young man catches it without effort and asks what he wants. After a brief apology, he introduces himself as Lizel and says he only wants to talk. To make his intentions clear, the protagonist accidentally drops a few more coins. Lizel gets the message and follows him. Soon, they enter a bar. The dark-haired man asks the bartender for a table far from the crowd. Once seated, their drinks arrive. The dark-haired man asks what Lizel wants to know. But instead of answering, Lizel smirks and says that a plain exchange of information would be boring. He suggests they talk about jobs, past relationships, or personal tastes, anything to get to know each other better. With little choice, the man introduces himself as Gil, a rank B adventurer. He admits he has never had a girlfriend and doesn't plan on getting one, claiming he's cold and prefers being alone. Hearing this, Lizel realizes that the armed people he saw earlier must have been adventurers too. He jokes that even if Gil says he isn't interested in women, he probably still gets plenty of attention. Gil shrugs and says that's possible. Now more curious, Gil starts paying closer attention. He usually works alone and rarely trusts people, yet Lizel's presence doesn't bother him. He can't tell if Lizel is truly powerful or just a clueless noble. Lizel takes a sip of his drink and remarks that Gil is sharp for asking so many questions. Gil asks if Lizel plans to answer any of them. Lizel fires back, asking how much he really wants to know. Gil says everything including his love life. Lizel replies that he has no fixed job, no clear social status, and no romantic history, because a true gentleman doesn't keep track of such things. Gil doesn't feel like he's being lied to, but he admits it's not the friendliest introduction. He explains that he isn't trying to investigate Lizel, he's just curious. At that point, Lizel decides to stop dancing around the topic. He spreads the map on the table and asks Gil to explain the region marked on it. Gil points out Parterdita, the capital of the Kingdom of Merad, a major trading nation. Nearby is Cabana, a land rich in magical minerals. He explains that the two countries fought in the past, but things have been calm recently. Lizel becomes convinced the area is the core of a powerful trade empire. Cabana provides resources, while Marad supplies sharp minds. When he asks Gil's opinion, Gil complains the question is vague, then finally sums it up: good inns, plentiful food, steady work, and a comfortable life for adventurers. That sparks an idea. With constant traffic to and from the capital, it would be easy to move unnoticed. Lizel turns his questions into a proposal and asks Gil to do him a favor. He offers generous pay and asks if Gil would act as his guide, possibly even as a bodyguard or watchful adventurer. Gil, who usually works alone, is caught off guard and half-jokingly says he'd rather do all of it. Told to at least think it over, he asks about the duration. Lizel answers 1 month. At first, Gil must stay close and explain things, later appearing only when summoned. Gil insists he won't reveal his true occupation and asks about payment. Lizel, smiling knowingly, asks how far Gil would go for the right price. Accepting calmly, Gil asks who Lizel thinks he's talking to. Lizel closes the door and declares it's time for his first request, then takes him straight to the guild. On the way, Gil explains that adventurers accept requests through the guild, which acts as a middleman. At the reception desk, they're told the guild master is absent and to return later. Gil refuses to leave, and an employee named Stu eventually comes to see them. Stu has Lizel register using a special device. Lizel pricks his finger, lets a drop of blood fall onto the sheet, and it glows registration complete. Stu gives him a guild card and brings out several books to explain guild operations. He also mentions the guild provides free encyclopedias on monsters and plants, available for reading inside the building. When Lizel asks to buy them, Stu explains they can't be taken outside. Instead, he draws a small map to a bookstore that sells many kinds of books. Lizel thanks him and, in a strange show of gratitude, gently pats Stu on the head before leaving. 3 days later, Lizel is buried in books when Gil arrives with a report, saying the request went smoothly. He jokes about Lizel reading too much, opens a random book, and is startled when Lizel continues the passage from memory. He's already read them all. Gil admits the books sound like nonsense to him. Noticing it's almost noon, they eat lunch and head to the guild. At the guild, Lizel greets Stu, who clearly remembers the noble who once patted his head. Lizel explains they want the missing details before choosing a job. While Stu prepares the list, another adventurer loudly mocks them, sneering at Gil for teaming up with someone like Lizel. Gil and Lizel ignore him at first. The man keeps pressing, asking why Gil rejected his group and what's so special about Lizel. Gil finally looks at him with cold disdain and tells him not to speak so familiarly, they aren't friends. When the adventurer makes a crude remark about Lizel, Gil responds that Lizel is in a far better position than the man. Lizel then casually remarks that Gil's 1-month contract could end right now, which Stu finds inappropriate, though Lizel's real anger is the insult toward Gil. When questioned, Lizel stands and calmly states that he and Gil work together by mutual agreement. The man scoffs, accusing Lizel of buying loyalty with money. Lizel asks if he truly believes Gil would sell himself for a few coins, adding that even if Lizel paid more, it wouldn't work. The adventurer boasts he's rank B. Lizel politely congratulates him, then adds it's troubling that someone like him would compare himself to something that clearly belongs to Lizel, meaning Gil. Enraged, the adventurer draws his sword and attacks. Stu prepares to intervene, but Gil moves first, blocks the strike, snaps the sword in half, and kicks the man into the wall. Seeing Stu about to cast a spell, Lizel grabs his wrist and reminds him guild staff can't interfere unless arbitration is requested. Lizel pays for the wall damage, suggests postponing guild business, and leaves with Gil. Back at their lodgings, Gil pours a drink, reflecting on how he protected Lizel on instinct and on Lizel's words, especially that he belonged to him. Gil laughs softly to himself and mutters that he isn't even Lizel's knight.